The story of June and Nick's doomed romance has come to an end, with one episode remaining in the 6th and final season of The Handmaid's Tale. Their destiny was already sealed before the explosive events of episode 9. In this Hulu series, a theonomic dictatorship takes over the United States, turning fertile women into slaves who bear children. In A Handmaid's Tale, Max Minghella plays the role of Nick Blaine, and Elizabeth Moss portrays June Osborne, a woman who tries to flee the Gilead state but instead becomes a handmaid. June meets Nick during her stay in Gilead. Nick and June develop feelings for each other, while Nick works as a driver for Commander Fred Waterford, a prominent figure in Gilead to whom June was assigned as a handmaid. Their romance lasted for a while during the first few seasons of The Handmaid's Tale, but as Nick advanced to commander and June became deeply involved in the resistance against Gilead, it became clear they were heading in different directions. Eventually, Nick's allegiance remained with Gilead, and he, along with other commanders, would die in a catastrophic crash caused by a bomb hidden on their plane. The Handmaid's Tale, June and Nick ending takes place in a dystopian society where the oppression of women, whether they are handmaids, aunts, or even members of the ruling family, is a real and present threat. Therefore, it was always out of the question for the series to conclude with June and Nick in a happy, trouble-free relationship. Nick had long thrived under the dictatorship and had even contributed to its ascent. June had been a victim of its system. It would be counterproductive to the show's message if The Handmaid's Tale ended with the couple in a peaceful step forward without addressing these important contrasts. Any resolution that failed to acknowledge Nick's role would be unfair to June, who had sacrificed so much for her cause and endured immense suffering. In addition, while Nick's journey initially revealed a more compassionate side, it becomes evident toward the end of his story that he will never quite escape his role in Gilead's troubled past. Nick deserved. Comparing Nick to his equivalent in the Handmaid's Tale novel reveals a much more complicated and expansive character. In his first appearance, Nick is portrayed as a mere cog in the Gilead machine. However, it is later discovered that Nick was a founding member of the Sons of Jacob prior to their operation to seize America and establish the new rule. Thus, he was directly responsible for passing the legislation that would subject June and many other women to unimaginable atrocities. Nick may be trying to atone for his wrongdoings by lending a hand to June and the Mayday opposition, but he can only do so much to defeat Gilead. Despite the limitations imposed by Gilead's upper management on him and Commander Lawrence, Nick's loyalties can shift depending on the circumstances and how they affect him, and by implication, June. In contrast, Lawrence is so intent on making amends that he promises to remain in Gilead to clean up his mess. Season 6 of The Handmaid's Tale strengthens Nick's intuition when he tells his father-in-law about his rebel plans to rescue June, which results in the murders of several Jezebels. After this breakup, Nick realizes that making amends won't help him in the long run, so he stops trying. Nick chooses to reunite with the other flight commanders instead. Despite his apparent progress, Nick's admission that he was on the winning side as the plane took off reveals that, in the end, he would choose the path that would bring him the most benefit rather than the most moral one. His death is confirmed. One could argue that the moment Nick helped create Gilead, his destiny was already decided. Even if he had wanted to make amends for all his mistakes, Nick may have been able to selflessly commit himself to the fight against the tyranny, if he had chosen to devote himself to safeguarding the people he cared about. Nick would have had to give his life to bring down Gilead, a kingdom he helped establish for selfish motives, to prove that he had changed for the better. Regardless of Nick's role in maintaining or overthrowing the dictatorship, it is doubtful he would have been able to enjoy a happily ever after with June had he lived. Nick would still face consequences for his actions while serving the dictatorship. Regardless of whether June acknowledged his transformation, any future administration would undoubtedly want to hold him accountable for his role. Lawrence knew this was going to happen to Nick, regardless of whether he escaped with the rescued children or not. Nick had already plotted his demise the moment he became a member of the Sons of Jacob.